Right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm the moderator for today's webinar. I'm Ashley Charlton, the Development Coordinator for ProPoint Cancer Support. Let me introduce you to our speakers. Gina Shay-Zapien is one of 2 nurse navigators in the breast center at Menorah Medical Center in Overland Park, Kansas. Gina spent most of her 20 years of nursing in the world of labor and delivery as a staff nurse, educator, and clinical nurse specialist. In July 2012, she reluctantly became a member of the Pink Sister Club with her diagnosis of stage 3 breast cancer. After journeying through surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, the offer to join with Sarah Cannon and the navigation program at Menorah was too tempting to turn down. Working with hundreds of incredible women and men with breast cancer over the past 2 years has allowed her the opportunity to grow and learn in ways she never imagined. Next, Mary Visceglia is currently working as a clinical informatics RN at Sarah Cannon and worked previously for 2 years as a breast nurse navigator for 2 of TriStar's Nashville facilities. As a navigator, she helped breast cancer patients route their unique healthcare needs through the various physician specialists, treatment options, and other necessary support. Before assuming this position, she spent more than a decade caring for oncology patients in California, New Jersey, and New York. She also currently is a facilitator for the Oncology Nursing Society's Chemotherapy and Biotherapy online class and was named the March of Dimes Nurse of the Year for Women's Health last December. The nonprofit organization recognizes Middle Tennessee nurses who demonstrate excellence in various aspects of the nursing profession. Finally, Margaret Martin, PearlPoint's nutrition educator and registered dietitian. Margaret Martin is a licensed dietitian and nutritionist in the state of Tennessee as well as a certified diabetes educator. Margaret graduated from the University of Alabama with a Bachelor of Science in Dietetics and received a master's degree in nutrition science and public health from the University of Tennessee. She has more than 10 years of experience in clinical nutrition. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can submit them in the panel on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be answering questions after the presentation. Connect with us on Twitter at MyProPoint. Use the hashtag PPCSwebinar. After the webinar, complete the survey so we can improve our webinars and better serve you. Here you can take a quick look at our agenda for today. We'd also like to take a moment to thank the Memorial Foundation for helping make today's webinar possible. A quick disclaimer, ProPoint Cancer Support is not a treatment facility. We are a nonprofit organization that provides education and resources for cancer survivors. The webinar does not provide medical care. Always talk to your healthcare team before changing your diet or if you are having any side effects from treatment. So who is ProPoint Cancer Support? We are a nonprofit support organization with the mission to create a more confident cancer journey for adults anytime, anywhere. We've been serving survivors, co-survivors, and healthcare professionals for over 28 years. We provide education and resources through MyProPoint, a website dedicated to educating cancer survivors. Our main focuses are cancer education, clinical trials, nutrition, and survivorship. Visit MyProPoint after the webinar to create a free dashboard and receive personalized resources such as the Cancer Handbook, which we currently have available for multiple cancer types including breast, lung, stomach, pancreatic, colorectal, esophageal, liver, and others. You can also learn more about side effect management by watching the Eat to Fight video series. On the home page, click on the Nutrition and Cancer section to find the videos. Now I will hand things over to Gina and Mary.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I'm going to start us off today. This is Gina. And Ashley, feel free to go ahead and change that slide so I don't have to look at myself anymore. All right. I wanted to start today with a quote from an author whose name is Brene Brown. Brene's work deals with life in general, nothing that's cancer specific. But when I saw this quote, it made me think very much of what Mary and I wanted to accomplish with this webinar today. So take just a minute and I'll start our story by reading this to you. This journey belongs to no one but you. However, no one successfully goes it alone. All of us must make our own way, exploring some of the most universally shared experiences while also navigating a solitude that makes us feel as if we are the first to set foot in uncharted regions. We must learn to depend for brief moments on fellow travelers for sanctuary, support, and an occasional willingness to walk side by side. Next slide, please.
Great, thank you, Gina. I think that really sets the tone of what we're trying to do here. Our objective is to review the journey of the breast cancer patient from initial suspicion and diagnosis through to survivorship, showing what makes each one unique, but also exploring the shared experiences. The goal is to explain why cancer isn't like your neighbors and why it is very unique to you. Because this can also feel very isolating, like no one understands what you're going through. We wanted to also make sure that everyone understood that while this is your own cancer, that there are some really shared experiences that can help you bond you to another survivor. Next slide, please. Okay, so breast anatomy. One of the things, it's really important as you're going through this journey is to understand why we have, where the diagnosis comes from. And very much it comes from different parts of the breast. The breast is about 1/3 fat tissue. The remaining 2/3 is composed of milk ducts and supportive fibrous tissue. Breast size has nothing to do with the vulnerability of cancer or other breast diseases. So often when we get into diagnosis a little bit, you'll hear us talk about if something is a ductal cancer or a lobular cancer, and it has entirely to do with location of the cancer in the anatomy of the breast. Next slide. Some of the factors that increase the risk of breast cancer. I love this slide, and the reason being is that I can't tell you how many times I had patients tell me that they didn't need a mammogram because they didn't have a family history of breast cancer. And I think it is a very big misunderstanding that you have to have the family history to be at risk for this type of cancer. And as you can see, there's quite a few here risks that we need to talk about and make sure you all understand, or that we need to relate to our patients. Getting older is a risk factor. So over the age of 65 does put you in a higher risk. Gene mutation. There are a few known genes right now. The most notable that we hear about in the news all the time are what we call BRCA1 and BRCA2, or BRCA1 and BRCA2. Let's see. Those are familial genes, which means that they're carried on down through families. And if you're at risk for it, that's something your doctor would have a conversation with you about. Personal history, and this is whether you've had yourself a past cancer history of breast cancer, or also we want to look at your first-degree relatives, and this is where it gets a little confusing. For us, first degree is your mother, father, sister, or brother. Okay, so aunts and cousins, while it does matter, are considered second-degree relatives with this. An example would be, I have a cousin who had breast cancer at the age of 40. Technically, it doesn't put me at any other risk. It's good for my doctor to know about that, but it doesn't really affect my chances of getting cancer. Dense breast. So what this looks like, it looks like a big whited out white glob on a mammogram. And the reason this is an issue is that you can't see any abnormalities easily. So this puts you at risk. Previous chest radiation. This could be for breast cancer or other cancers such as lung cancer or lymphomas. First pregnancy after the age of 30, first period before the age of 12, menopause after the age of 55, no pregnancies, no breastfeeding. A little note there, I've had patients ask me if not only was breastfeeding a risk factor, which it's not, it actually is a protectant for this, but also could they have passed any cancer genes or cells through to their children, and no, that's not a possibility. 2 or more alcoholic drinks a day, and a high BMI. So, and this really looks at if you're overweight, but also where you're carrying it. A lot of it has to do if you're carrying it around the middle, you're at a higher risk. Next slide.
And Mary, I'll take this one now that I've got myself off mute.
That's all right.
In 2015, we expect that we'll see more than 230,000 new cases of invasive cancer. That's an awful lot of pink ribbons. We also have more than 60,000 cases of the in situ breast cancer. That's the stage 0 breast cancer. And there's some debate about, do we call that cancer or do we not? So for these statistics, that's broken out. Despite all of our best treatment efforts and all of the research that's gone into it, we will still have 40,000 breast cancer deaths in this year alone. Our goal, of course, as a society is early diagnosis. We know that early diagnosis leads to overall better outcomes. So that is our goal. And at this point, mammograms, while they're not 100%, are the only proven way to screen for breast cancer. Mary, let's talk about those breast cancer recommendations for doing those mammograms.
Great segue. Next slide, please. Okay, so screening recommendations. There's actually a lot of confusion around this because of some headlines from the American Cancer Society recently. One of the things that we, because of the changes, two things. As it did state in the beginning of the webinar, we are not recommending anything over the other. We do, to follow along what was previously recommended, self-breast exams every month. This really is about knowing your body, and I would encourage anybody to be doing this. You know, you would know if you've got lumpy, bumpy, or if something which would be normal to you versus something that feels new. Clinical exam every year. This would be your physician having doing a physical exam on you. Annual mammogram starting at the age of 40. And mammograms every other year starting at age 50. Now these, like I said, there are new recommendations out. From our point of view, what I would always tell you really, this is a very, as with anything that we're talking about today, this is a very personalized thing. I would want you to have a conversation with your primary care physician or your gynecologist and talk about what's the best route for you based on either family history or just, again, what is the best recipe for you with all this stuff. So thank you. Next slide, please. And as you can see, yep, confusion.
No matter how good the mammogram is, there's no way to really diagnose breast cancer without doing a biopsy. The biopsy is needed for diagnosis, and that tissue can be gathered a number of different ways depending on whether it looks like calcifications or if there's a solid nodule or if it's in a location that can even be obtained through a needle biopsy. The end result is the tissue goes to the pathology department, and from there you receive the diagnosis of breast cancer. Next slide, please.
Okay, so how do we pack for this journey? We've had our mammograms, we've been seeing something abnormal, we've had a biopsy, and now we're told that we have cancer. And I think this is a really great slide because it shares the unique journey. For starters, this is not like a planned trip. I can't, if I was planning to go to Ireland next year, I would have a full itinerary. I'd be planning it. I'd know how much it would cost. I would be saying I'm going to be spending 3 days in Dublin. I'm going to take a train ride down to Waterford and then do the Ring of Kerry. And I would have it all planned out, not only with where I was staying, but I would have the logistics all laid out. Not so with cancer diagnosis, and I can say that about any cancer diagnosis. No one prepares you for it. No one says at the age of 65, you're going to have this cancer. It feels more like an emergency evacuation for Hurricane Katrina. Grab what you can, put it in a bag, and run for your life. Okay, and this is like a marathon, and you don't necessarily know when the end is going to be. Okay, and I think this is this slide really shows you all of the unknowns, and I think the hard part up front is that once you have that biopsy come back and we tell you of breast cancer, we can't answer any of these questions that are on this slide until we do some further research, basically. We don't know the size, we don't know if it's HER2 positive, we don't know the genetics behind it, nothing. And I think that can be really scary and really frustrating, and that's really where, I'm going to say, as navigators, we can come in and be really helpful, but just where the support absolutely needs to begin is right at this point. Next slide. Okay, and I love this. I'm frustrated that this is right before lunch that we're having this slide right here because it always makes me think of Chinese food. But another great example of how cookie cutter this so is not. You don't go in and say, not only do I have breast cancer, but I'm going to make these decisions based on the diagnosis. We need the questions answered from the previous slide to see how we're going to help you pick your meal, if you will, here, to help you guide you through your journey. And the key thing here is that it's not that while you have choices, there are some things that are particular to your cancer that may steer you in one direction or another. For example, not everyone who has cancer has to have chemo or lose their hair. Not everyone has radiation. Not every selection noted here is going to be good for you or right for you. And these are the conversations that you have with your physician to make sure that not only are you doing right by your pretty much to respect to do right by yourself. Next slide, please. Another great example here to really show how this cancer, my cancer is not going to be the same as yours. And again, a really interesting scenario of, and this is a real-time scenario of two sisters. And just to briefly graze over here, you can see that not any one of this is the same between each sister. And it's really interesting between the ages of when they had cancer, the different things about the specific characteristics of the cancer, and the different modalities and treatment that they chose, okay, or were the options that were given to them. So a really great slide to show how this just does, not any one of these is exactly the same. Next slide. The one thing that we can say, though, that is a common denominator here, or a shared experience, or the things that are really pretty universal across the board with this diagnosis is that first, survivorship starts with diagnosis. You're a survivor from the time you are told you have breast cancer. You're a warrior. And not only are you going to get through this, but you're going to have a support team that will help you through it. Gina's going to go into a lot more about what this all means, too. Unsolicited advice. My Lord, you will hear about everything related to cancer, whether it's your friends, sisters, cousins, aunt who went through it. Everybody's seen this becomes a very common language to be talking to, a common bond. And I think I like to tell my patients, this is you. You own this cancer, and you do need to sometimes put up boundaries as to what advice is given to you and how much people invade your space with it. Cancer changes things. There is often a feeling of that this is a milestone, if you will, and you have a life before cancer and a life after cancer. Things don't go back to the normal that they were before. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be normal moving on, but it's a new normal, and that can sometimes be is hard for people to move over. It's growing pains. You will become bilingual. We will teach you how to understand medicalese, if you will. The universal language of talking about cancer and what medical terminology, you will be proficient by the end of your diagnosis. This is also can be considered a chronic condition, and I look at this from twofold. Not only can it be a chronic condition depending on your stage, sometimes these cancers are not curable, but they're treatable, and people can live with them for quite a long time. It doesn't have to be a death sentence from the beginning. It can be very much like having blood pressure or diabetes. The other thing I look at this is that you may have some long-term side effects from treatment, things like a peripheral neuropathy. And to me, that's a chronic condition that can last longer than the actual treatment time, and sometimes can last for quite a long time. It may actually be permanent. And so I do consider that in this category of chronic conditions. Strong opinions about the color pink. I sort of joke around. I've never had cancer, would never tell you how you should be feeling about it, but I'll tell you one thing, I can't stand the color pink on most days. There are a lot of people who feel very strongly about what it means, and others who feel that it's a big turnoff. So universal. And living with fear, I think this is probably the most important point on this whole slide, that I can tell you that we've cured you of your cancer. I should say, you will always hear the doctor say that there's no evidence of disease. And I think because you'll never hear a complete blanket statement that you don't have cancer anymore, that you never will, that there's always going to be this common thread of fear of what happens next. Where do we go from here? How do I move on without having this fear? And I think our next steps are going to be talking about that, because we feel that that's a really something that we wanted to address today. Next slide. So for today, for tomorrow, forever, your journey is starting today, but you're doing this not only for today, for tomorrow, but the long term, forever. And I'm going to turn this over to Gina now.
All right, thank you, Mary. Next slide, please. There we go. As we move on to what is the next step after beating breast cancer? Primarily, listen to your doctor. As a nurse, sometimes that's hard for me to say. Maybe it's hard for me to say to myself. We do need to listen to our providers. Medications are certainly important if you have an estrogen or progesterone positive breast cancer and you're prescribed tamoxifen or one of the aromatase inhibitors. Those are life-saving medications. We know from lots and lots of research that those medications really do prevent breast cancer reoccurrence. Follow-up appointments can be kind of anxiety-producing, I guess is what I want to say. It can be very difficult to go to the doctor and you just get that sick feeling in the pit of your stomach about, are they going to tell me that my cancer's back? Those follow-up appointments are really, really important for the physician to assess fully where you're at and to be able to help you if you're having some of the problems with anxiety and with dealing with the fear of reoccurrence. Physicians can help prescribe some medication for that as well as getting you linked up with support groups. Additional screenings. Just because you have breast cancer doesn't mean that you forget the rest of your body and all the other screenings that we know are good for us. The colonoscopy at age 50, the pap smears, doing a good skin survey with a dermatologist. And for those women who have had lumpectomy or maybe just a unilateral mastectomy, doing breast imaging becomes very important, usually at an increased frequency, and again with a lot of anxiety. So reach out for support during those times. Next slide, please. The bad word for the day, the four-letter word, is exercise. We all know we need to do it. Probably most of us will admit that we don't do as much as we should. The minimum requirements for breast cancer, or for cancer prevention in general, from the American Cancer Society are 150 minutes of moderate exercise each week or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise each week. Those are the minimum recommendations. They went so far as to tell us what the even better recommendations are, and that is doubling that, increasing to 300 minutes of moderate exercise or 150 minutes of vigorous exercise, and that will really help reduce the chance of a primary cancer or a recurrence of cancer. Next slide, please. I liked this slide because it was the best example that I could find of really breaking out what is moderate and what is vigorous as far as exercise intensity. And I like the fact that it's got the exercise, the walking and the aerobics, but it's also got the home activities kind of broken down. And we need to take credit for that, especially if we're trying to reach that 300 minute per week level of activity. So mowing the lawn, digging, carrying, all that counts as vigorous. but regular garden maintenance would count as moderate intensity. So take credit for everything you do. Next slide, please. Sounds a little contradictory. I just told you that we needed to exercise. Now I'm saying, okay, also make sure you get enough sleep. Sleep is really taken on, there's a lot of research going on in the area of sleep, and people really emphasizing the importance. It is really, truly mandatory for our physical and mental health. And those who know me might be kind of shaking their head at me and wagging their finger right now. It is true. I am one of those who does not often get enough sleep. So this is an area that for myself personally, I'm really trying to work on. It is important that we have the cycles of REM and non-REM sleep throughout the night. Those need to be 4 to 6 times per night. So in order to meet that, that's a good 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night in order to meet those cycles. A lot of times, patients with cancer report a lot of problems with sleep, both during treatment and then following treatment. Things like insomnia. I've spent a lot of time staring at my ceiling at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and I hear a lot of patients tell me that they're up at that time as well. Sleep apnea. CPAP machines are a hot item these days. Lots of patients happen to get those. Hypersomnia is the inability to stay awake during the day. So if you find yourself falling asleep during a meeting, perhaps during a webinar, wake yourself up and try and get some more sleep during the night. The circadian rhythm disorders are just that's a general term for being unable to sleep and wake at the right times. And the parasomnia, that's one of my favorites. The unusual behaviors during sleep. That includes things like sleep eating, sleep talking, sleep walking, doing all the strange things while you're supposed to be in bed resting. Next slide, please. We put a lot of emphasis on managing stress. There really is no evidence to securely link stress to cancer, either as a primary cancer or as a reoccurrence. But I think that's the general feeling in a lot of the population. I had people tell me when I was diagnosed with breast cancer that it was because I was too stressed. Maybe they were trying to be helpful, but that wasn't very helpful advice for me. To tell somebody that they're too stressed sometimes just adds stress to their lives. I've noticed in working with cancer patients that a lot of them report higher levels of stress and anxiety after active treatment. And that always seems to be kind of, they feel like they're doing it at the wrong time. It's like, gosh, I went through surgery, I went through radiation, I went through chemotherapy, I've been through this, traumatic experience of dealing with cancer. Why do I feel stressed now that things are somewhat back to normal? I think it's kind of that new normal like Mary mentioned. It is different, and your life is different, and that is hard. Sometimes it's really hard to accept the fact that without your permission, really, life changed from underneath you. Stress management is important, not just so you don't get cancer again, because, again, there's not a lot of evidence showing that, but it is important for your emotional well-being and your improved quality of life right now. We know that there is some link between stress and the immune system, and certainly it's going to make you feel better if you can figure out a way to manage stress. That being said, I left that bottom bullet point with a fill in the blank, because I think a lot of times we pressure ourselves to be positive, to be healthy, to always be in control, to always have the right answer, to be perfect. Fill in the blank, whatever it is for you, and give yourself permission to not always be anything. We need to be who we are in the moment and not always put that pressure on ourselves. Next slide, please. So I go from exercise and sleep straight to weight. And yes, both exercise and sleep are implicated in maintaining that healthy weight. Both of them are important in getting that balance. Listed the BMI categories there. And BMI, that body mass index, is really the best indicator that we have for adults of whether they're at a healthy weight. For kids, we use the growth charts, and we can say they're at the 75th percentile or the 90th percentile. For adults, we don't have that. So the BMI is an estimate of the total body fat. What it looks at is both the height and the weight of an individual. The BMI is not the be-all and end-all, but it does give us a rough estimate of whether we are at a healthy weight. The goal is to keep a BMI between 18.5 and 24.9. If you are not at that weight, then the goal is a gradual, steady loss, and that's defined by the NIH as 1 to 2 pounds per week. That is the goal. I found it helpful to find the statistic that 1 pound equaled 3,500 calories. And if we reduce our calories by 500 to 1,000 per day, that should help us with that gradual, steady loss of 1 to 2 pounds per week. We also expect that by maintaining a healthy weight, we will see improvements in our blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, all those kind of things. And interestingly enough, the benefits start when you lose about 5 to 10% of your weight loss. So if you are a 200-pound person, then losing just 10 pounds, you'll start to see benefit. That may not be all that you need to lose if you're a 200-pound person, but even small increments can really help. Next slide, please. Here is our word of caution for the day. As all of those breast cancer survivors that are listening, it is estimated that about 1 in 5 cancer deaths in the United States are linked with excess body weight. We know that there is a relationship between the body weight and the inflammatory process in the body, and we're beginning to see signs that obesity is definitely a risk factor for cancers, particularly breast cancer. Where we see the greatest link is between the ages of 18 and 50. So it's the adult that gains weight, and gaining even 10, 20 pounds during that adult period is really linked to an increase in postmenopausal breast cancer. That has to do some with the estrogen that can be found in adipose tissue or body fat. The average weight gain for a breast cancer survivor is 5 to 10 pounds over a pre-diagnosis weight. I have patients tell me all the time, oh my gosh, I think I am the only person who had cancer and actually gained weight. I think we have the image in our minds of this thin, emaciated person fighting cancer. That's not always the case. With most people, there is actually a weight gain during cancer treatment. And I think that holds true even more so for those people that are getting chemotherapy. For those patients getting chemotherapy, they're more than twice as likely to gain at least 11 pounds during their follow-up visits. I would blame that in part to all of the great support that patients often have, where people bring in great food for them to eat, so that way they don't have to try and cook during chemotherapy. So that support is wonderful, but sometimes it can really help us pack on the pounds. Sometimes I think it's we have a resistance to exercising and moving as well during treatment, and we think that this is a time maybe just to lay low and go grab that gallon of ice cream out of the freezer because, by golly, we have cancer and we deserve it. That's okay every once in a while, but really try and watch that weight gain if possible. Luckily, we've got Margaret here with us today, and she's going to talk with us next about some of the nutrition tips that can help us during treatment and after treatment. Margaret, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mary and Gina, for that valuable presentation on unique breast cancer journeys. Now, let's look at nutrition strategies to reduce your risk of side effects. Next slide. Today, for our objectives, I'd like for us to see how nutrition can be helpful and beneficial to you on your cancer journey. We're going to look at strategies to help manage side effects during your treatment. And at the end, we'll also wrap up with some breast cancer survivor nutrition strategies as well. And lastly, we'll check out some more online resources. Next. I think our theme today is that your journey and your type of cancer is unique to you. And to build on that, I'd like to say that healthy food choices are unique as well. Each of you have specific food tolerances, likes, and maybe some not so much likes. You also may have other health concerns that you were dealing with before breast cancer, like maybe high blood pressure or diabetes. So you can see how there's really not just one breast cancer diet, although I do get requests for that every week. It's unique to you and what's going on with you and your body, and what you can tolerate as you go along this journey we call survival. Now, one thing I like to throw out there is that there are no bad foods or foods to avoid during cancer and cancer treatment. Of course, there are foods that have lots of calories and not much nutrition, which you may find you have to use on sick days to get you going. But when you feel better, it's better to return to some foods that have more nutrients for you and good things to help you have energy along your journey. When you feel good enough again to choose a variety of food, that's a great plan for you that day. I do recommend that you judge unsolicited food advice. I think Gina and Mary referred to unsolicited advice before, but be wary of that and the internet promises of those miracle foods. You know, judge them with a grain of salt or with a skeptical eye. Often these suggestions or advice are just testimonial in nature, perhaps one person's experience, but not necessarily based on science or evidence. So let's start with what food can do for you. Next slide. Making healthy food choices have a lot of benefits during treatment. I guess the most important being that helps you adhere to the treatment plan that you and your team have agreed on. Usually it's spelled out in X number of treatments over so many weeks or months. And the closer you can complete all those treatments, the more likely you'll have a better outcome. Also, making healthy, good food choices for you helps you have energy and zest for your daily activities. We were just talking about physical activity. What a great time if you're approved for exercise to, you know, get out and walk or do something fun you like, whether it's gardening or Tai Chi or yoga or swimming. You know, have energy to do things you enjoy or visiting with friends. Many of us may be also facing other chronic conditions, and a lot of people now, survivors of breast cancer, live to unfortunately face chronic conditions like heart disease or osteoporosis. So making healthy food choices during breast cancer can help you reduce your risk of those other chronic diseases. And of course, eating healthily can help you feel better, to enjoy life. It can give you more energy, help you sustain your blood sugar, for instance, so you feel better, help you maintain a good iron status. So it has a lot of great advantages. So Next slide, we're going to be looking at, before we can talk about treatment, I always like to look at what are some healthy nutrition suggestions to help you reduce your risk of cancer in life. I think that's a good place to start. And there are many health organizations that give recommendations. I think the most, I guess, popular one is AICR, or the American Institute of Cancer Research. They have kind of made a pictorial representation of a lot of their recommendations called the New American Plate. And there's a visual graphic there on the right that shows that. Also, following maybe a heart-healthy menu or the DASH plan can also be a great way to reduce your risk for cancer. The DASH plan stands for Dietary Approach to Stop Hypertension, and it looks at, low fat, low sodium, as well as adding more fruits, vegetables, and low-fat dairy to your meals. But a healthy way or healthy set of habits to help you reduce your risk of cancer might be, first of all, just look at your plate at a meal. Change the way you fill your plate. When I was growing up, it was often thought that half of your plate should be meat. If you're having guests, you have a large amount of meat with maybe a sprinkling of vegetables and probably a starch. The new way of thinking, or the New American Plate, is change your plate to be 2/3 or more with fruits, vegetable, beans, and whole grains. And this is visualized there on the plate at the right. Also in the switch, make 1/3 or less of your plate animal protein, such as fish, poultry, low-fat meat, low-fat dairy. It's also recommended to avoid processed meats like ham, sausage, and wieners, and to be physically active and avoid alcohol. So those are just some basic tenets to think about. You don't see a lot of things here about some of the things I hear about, oh, I shouldn't have X or I shouldn't have Y, but it's more about what are the quantities you're eating and eating them in balance. Now, let's turn our attention to nutrition side effects. Next slide. Of course, there are many treatments for breast cancer, as we just heard, and some of them and the cancer itself can cause barriers or side effects. Side effects can slow you down or prevent you from eating and drinking. Some examples of side effects that you might want to be aware of are nausea, change in taste or smell, digestive changes like constipation or maybe diarrhea, loss of appetite, vomiting, weight changes, and fatigue. All of these side effects can be a barrier to helping you eat well. So let's look at a few strategies to help you manage these side effects. Next. There is help to manage side effects. Some of the folks I speak to with breast cancer think that's just part of it. There's nothing you can do about side effects like nausea or digestive changes. But there certainly are, and it's a great conversation to have with your healthcare team. On the nutrition side, sometimes it's just a very small change that can give you relief from the side effects. It might be a change in the time or timing of your meals, the temperature from warm to cool foods maybe. It might be eating smaller portion sizes but eating more often. It might be cooking differently, maybe cooking once or twice a week and freezing the meals so you don't have to stand up to cook a lot. It might be looking at the kind of utensils you're using or the taste, sour or sweet, that you're using. In other words, you probably picked up on the fact that most of these strategies are not expensive. They don't involve a lot of expensive, maybe appliances or rare and exotic foods that are difficult and pricey to locate. So sometimes it's just a small change or two that can help you tolerate some of the side effects you might experience. And just know there's not one breast cancer diet or recommendation. It's what you need to help you get better nutrition as you go through treatment. Next slide. Today I thought we could touch on the top 3 side effects of breast cancer that I hear from the clients with whom I speak. And those are nausea, or the feeling of green, that you're not going to be able to keep your meal down. Secondly, loss of appetite. And lastly, we'll touch on fatigue. Next. Let's first look at nausea. Nausea is different in, I think, cancer treatment than nausea we might have in everyday life. Often when we think about when we eat, the timing of foods can really help you decrease your risk for nausea. If you have small, frequent meals or mini snacks every 3 to 4 hours, that helps a lot of people to reduce nausea. Every hour, if you think about it, every hour we make digestive juices, and if you don't have anything in your tummy to help absorb those, sometimes that can bring on nausea. So if even just nibbling on toast, crackers, dry cereal, pretzels, breadsticks, maybe ginger cookie or ginger candy can help resolve that. Also, I recommend to people to have a pre-treatment plan, a light meal they can eat before treatment. Next slide. A pre-treatment or light meal can help you tolerate your chemotherapy or radiation, but mostly chemo much better. And it can be something simple without a lot of aroma, like ginger tea with cookies, or maybe a small or half a sandwich with juice. It could be something simple like cheese and crackers, or cereal and milk that you enjoy. If you're on the go, some people take vegetable sticks with dip with them, or fruit and cottage cheese, or you can have some hummus with baked cheese, or make a smoothie or a liquid nutrition drink. But talk with your healthcare team about what they might recommend for a pre-treatment meal. Next slide. Also, as we look at the types of food you eat and how the food is served, that can really help reduce your risk for nausea. Since, number one, food aromas can stimulate nausea, try to eat away from the kitchen or away from where the food is being prepared. If you can, if someone else is making the food for you, maybe sit in another room away from the kitchen. You can use fans or exhaust fans to help as well. Try to block the food aroma by using straws and covers on your plates or cups as you're drinking, and that helps muffle the food aroma. And be open to new foods during treatment. I know many of us have some very set and permanent food likes and dislikes, but treatment time is the time maybe to retry some foods you didn't think you liked, and you might have a flavor for it now. In other words, swap some new flavors for some old ones that aren't working for you anymore. If you never liked baked chicken, maybe it might be a good swap for fried chicken, which is often hard to digest for some people. Often think about how you're serving your food. Use the plastic cups and utensils can really cut down the metallic taste that a lot of people complain about. And if you're lucky enough to have a takeout meal brought to you, or a friend might make a meal train or bring food to you, then you won't be around the food preparation. And if you reduce the temperature of the food, chill out, maybe have cooler foods, they carry lower aroma. So a cold plate, stuffed eggs, a fruit plate, a sandwich, that can all be a great meal with very little aroma, which helps to cut down on nausea. Next slide. Other ideas to think about low aroma might be to start with a cool appetizer, like fruit or Jell-O or something that's cold, a cold soup, like like gazpacho. That helps lessen your mouth pain if you're having issues with that, and involves little aroma. You can go with smoothies or ices as well. They're cold and can carry a lot of nutrition, especially if you add something to your smoothie or icy. And think about some cold foods. Maybe make a list to have on hand, and people are shopping for you or bringing meals can go to that, like nuts, fruits, sandwiches, yogurt, cheese and crackers, and cold soups. If you're doing the shopping, just mainly stay in the cold and frozen food aisles. They have much less aroma. And also, it's fun to freeze pieces of fruit, such as berries, grapes, bananas, etc., and have them for snacks or to help if you have a sore mouth. That can help anesthetize your mouth a little bit. Next slide. Now let's turn our attention toward low appetite. Nausea can affect your appetite, of course, and there are other reasons for low appetite. It can be taste in your mouth, or you might be feeling isolated or stressed during your cancer journey. That is average for many people. So let's look at some strategies to help you ease into a better appetite. One is to rinse your mouth before meals, either with water or a slightly salty mouth rinse that you could make at home. Also, time your meals. Have your biggest meal when you feel the best. That just makes sense. So if you feel best in the morning, try to have your largest meal then. Next, improve the atmosphere while you're eating. Maybe have some soft music, pretty napkins, or a friend or family member to eat with you. Choose foods that you can eat, and those you'll be able to eat more of, and that can help battle a poor appetite. It doesn't do much to make food that you don't like to eat, because you probably won't eat very much of those. And don't be afraid to ask for help in food shopping, grocery shopping, and in food preparation. Sometimes people report they spend so much energy cooking and go in the grocery store that they're exhausted and are not able to eat. Be sure to ask for help. And also consult with your healthcare team. There are some great medications to help with a low appetite. And there may also be a reason for that they can also treat. And lastly, go soft. If you're having digestive problems or swallowing or oral problems, you might want to use a soft menu. Let's just look at a few examples of what a soft menu might have. Next. Gentle or soft foods or menus might be low acid juices like cherry, grape, cranberry, or apple. You can drink those as a beverage. You can freeze them and eat them like an icy, or make Jell-O with them. Instead of a lot of raw vegetables, if you need a gentle diet, choose cooked vegetables like green beans, carrots, potatoes. And if you're having trouble with bloating, you might want to avoid cruciferous vegetables that kind of add to gas, like broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. White breads, bagels, crackers, and cereals are often better digested than whole grains, as are plain noodles, pasta, and rice. If you're having trouble with bloating, you might try canned fruits instead of a lot of fresh fruits. Cook your meats with low-fat preparation, like baking, stewing, crock pot, instead of frying your meat, fish. Eggs you can boil. You can make stuffed eggs. That makes a great easy lunch or snack. And broths and soups made with cooked vegetables are great. And just plain desserts like angel food cake, yogurt, puddings, ices, and cookies. Just some suggestions if you need what we call a gentle or soft diet. Next slide. Our last side effect I wanted to touch on is fatigue. Fatigue is different for each person, but generally it's thought of not having the energy you need to do your daily activities of life, like dressing, eating, shopping, making appointments, and keeping your schedule. So I challenge people to check their routine. Are you eating every 3 to 4 hours to keep your energy up? That's often something that really helps. Are you getting enough fluid, either in beverages, soups, popsicles, Jell-O? There are a lot of things that have fluid in them. It doesn't always have to be water, but we need enough fluid for the medications to be absorbed and for your digestion to be complete. Are you having protein at most meals, especially if you've had surgery? Protein can be vegetable protein, dairy, or meat. If you're not hungry, try a nutritious beverage instead of a whole meal. And try to think about what might be healthy for you to eat. And ask your healthcare team for help. There might be a reason that you're having extreme fatigue. Next slide. Alrighty, let's see. Next slide, maybe. I might have two of the same slide. All right. Can we have our next slide, please? There we go. So, in summary, nutrition strategies can help you win during treatment with small meals. I like to call them mini meals. I think we're on slide 44. Take time to relax. Breast cancer is stressful. Treatment is a lot to keep up with, so take time to relax. Aim for good hydration. Some people keep a jug of 48 or 64 ounces in their fridge, and when they have 8 ounces of fluid that they've had, like super popsicles or a beverage, Crystal Light, they pour out that much out of their jug, so by the end of the day, they know how much they have left to drink. Reach for easy meals. You don't have to have complicated meals. It could be a cold sandwich with some fruit, or it could be partly pre-prepared, like a frozen entree with some yogurt and crackers. And talk with your healthcare team. Ask your dietitian, nutritionist, if you're just not able to manage your side effects. For instance, if you're not able to eat for 2 or 3 days, your usual meals, and you've lost, 3 to 10 pounds for no reason the last month, that's a great reason to ask for a referral to a registered dietitian. Now, very important, nutrition in survivorship or after treatment. Just some quick ideas. I'm using the acronym ACTIVE. A stands for add healthy foods often. After treatment, some side effects do dissipate after weeks, so you might be able to chew and enjoy foods you weren't able to enjoy during treatment, so try to add those back. Think about having meatless meals. It's suggested by AICR to have less than 18 ounces of red meat a week. So you might start with the habit that some people already use of meatless Mondays. Then during the week, instead of having a hamburger, you might have a bean burger or might have a egg burrito. So think about choosing other forms of protein. Talk to your team about soy. We get a lot of questions about that. There is a general agreement among many health experts that soy for breast cancer survivors can be safely included, especially if it's already being eaten by the person. Most of the studies on soy were with Asian women who already used a lot of soy. Soy in plants is not the same as estrogen in our human body. But so if you'd like to continue to use soy, talk to your healthcare team about that. Increase your physical activity. Start with something you like to do. If you like gardening or you like to ride a bike, do that. You don't have to join a gym or buy any expensive equipment. Get your friends and your support team on board. Maybe make appointments to go out and do some physical activity with them. Very important to value the food itself over using dietary supplements to be healthy. Why would we say that? Well, the majority of the research on nutrition and cancer is done with food itself, not with getting the nutrients from dietary supplements. So food is the preferred vehicle for nutrition. And dietary supplements aren't as regulated as our food market. So supplements, if you're going to use them, be sure to get one that is verified by an independent source like the USP. And lastly, edge toward a healthy body size for you. As we heard from Mary and Gina, being overweight is a huge risk for cancer in the first place, but especially after breast cancer occurrence. So start slowly to try to decrease your body size. You might aim for a half a pound or a pound a week as a change. And even just small changes in your body weight, like was presented earlier, 5 to 10%, can make a huge difference in your cancer risk. So just know your goal is a healthier you. Start your wellness journey now. One step at a time can lead you to great changes and better health. Last slide. Here's just a few additional resources. Of course, we want to point you to our website, which is MyProPoint.org. It has fantastic cancer education, nutrition videos and articles, a cancer resource finder, and information on clinical trials. And then we also wanted to point to sarahcannon.com as well. So now I'll turn it back to Ashley, our moderator. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you so much for our speakers for the useful and informative presentations. Join us for our next webinar in October. Date and time is to be announced in the November OnPoint e-newsletter. For even more help with side effect management, download our free mobile app to your smartphone or tablet. The Cancer Side Effects Helper app is available on iTunes and Google Play. The app offers quick tips to help you manage side effects such as nausea, fatigue, and change in taste and smell, all at your fingertips. Now let's take some questions. I know we don't have much time, but if we have any questions, you can go ahead and write them. Let's see, we have a question here for Margaret. Does taking vitamin D supplements help prevent breast cancer now that I have completed my treatment?
Oh, that's a great question and a hot topic. Vitamin D, of course, has many jobs in the body. We all know about bone health, but also it helps support immune function and decreasing inflammatory processes. In some studies, like the EPIC study, the European Prospective Investigation of Cancer and Nutrition Study, as well as some meta-analysis of other studies, it was found that for postmenopausal people, women in particular, it seems having enough vitamin D in blood levels to keep it into a healthy range is important for cancer risk reduction. So it's more important to work with your healthcare team to have your vitamin D levels of your blood tested to keep your vitamin D level at a minimum of 27 nanograms per milliliter. So the most important thing is for you and your healthcare team to titrate, your vitamin D intake to have healthy vitamin D levels. So I wouldn't take vitamin D just because it's in the news now. I would take it with your doctor's recommendation. Thank you.
Great. We have another question. What do whole grains mean? What are some examples?
All righty, whole grains, one of our favorite food recommendations. Well, whole grains are the complete version of the grain. It still has the 3 parts on it, like the germ, which is the new growth or the sprout, the endosperm, which is where the energy is in the grain, as well as the most popular part of the whole grain, the bran, or the outer layer that carries fiber. So a whole grain food will have the word whole grain usually as a first or second ingredient on the label, such as whole grain bread, bagels, English muffins, whole grain crackers you can find, cereals like oatmeal and other cereals like corn bran or wheat bran. You can now get whole grain pastas, in fact, and different types of whole grain flours like wheat, barley, etc. So whole grain means it's the most unprocessed you can probably get version of that food, as opposed to white bread and white rice and white puffy cereal. Thank you.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Remember, you can visit mypropoint.org for more resources for your cancer journey.